I am pleased to invite to the stage Carl Lindholm, who will introduce the late Sam Guarnaccia, who will be represented by his son, Sam.
Aaron, I'm going to need an extra 20 seconds. Far be it from me to correct the president, but I don't work here anymore, so what can she do? Except the first Hall of Famer is from the class of 1910, and it's Ray Fisher, who was a baseball player from the town of Middlebury, who played 10 years in the major leagues, and then went on to be the coach at Michigan, where he won national championships and 660 games. So I felt that needed to be said as a baseball person myself. When I was a student at Middlebury in the mid-1960s, I was lucky enough to know Sam Guarnaccia, though not well. I was not a student in one of his Spanish classes. He taught Spanish for 30 years. He was dean of the Spanish school for 22, and he began our school in Madrid in 1951. Nor was I a football player. Sam was a football coach at Middlebury for over 25 years. I actually think he knew me before I knew him. It seemed Sam knew everybody. He was a visible presence on campus, a robust man physically, warm and expressive. He loved teaching, he loved coaching football. Above all, he loved working with students. Now that's all well and good, but it's not why he's being inducted into the Middlebury Athletic Hall of Fame. It's because he was such a remarkable athlete himself in his years as an undergraduate at Middlebury in the class of 1930. Sam was brilliant in football and track and field, the best all-around athlete in the school, according to athletic director and track coach Arthur M. Brown. In football, Sam played in the backfield on both offense and defense. In the wonderful parlance of the day, here's how the campus newspaper described his play against Williams in his senior year. Indomitable captain Sammy Guarnaccia was everywhere, tackling this man, blocking that man, and in between tackles and blocks, scampering around ends or snaring passes. When he tore off 45 yards through the Williams team in the second half, the crowd of 2,500 went wild. And when he again circled the Williams flank for 20 yards more, the enthusiasm of the local cheering section knew no bounds. Football was a very big deal, with thousands of spectators at Saturday games on big football weekends. Had statistics on individual play been maintained, no doubt Sam's rushing and total yardage stats would have been spectacular. In his final game, an upset 19-0 win against our greatest rival UVM, with Sam scoring all 3 touchdowns, here's how the campus described his heroics that day. Plunging, slithering, and smashing through the line, or sliding around the ends, Sammy was easily the outstanding man on the field and ended his football career in a blaze of glory. His interception of a Vermont pass, an 85-yard dash for a touchdown in the second period, was the feature of the game. The enthusiastic Middlebury Rooters carried him off the field on their shoulders after the game. Track and field was hardly a minor sport in the 20s and 30s. Sam's main events were the shot put and the discus throw, though he also scored points in the broad jump. The campus reported on his performance in his senior spring at the Eastern Intercollegiate Track Meet in Worcester, Massachusetts, competing against athletes from dozens of other schools of all sizes. A second in the discus throw and a fourth in the shot put were Guarnaccia's contribution to Middlebury scoring. Sammy has been taking places galore, and not just this year, but in his entire 4 years of collegiate competition. He held the school track records in the 16-pound shot put and in the discus when he graduated. My college roommate and lifelong friend Gary Margolis played for Sam when Sam coached the freshman team. Gary wrote, "What good fortune to have been coached by Sam Guarnaccia my first year at Middlebury. Senior coach, whose smile and handshake could last a lifetime and has." Jim Shattuck, class of '64. Sam Guarnaccia was my line coach and my Spanish instructor. He was the consummate teacher and role model. Above all, he was a man who consistently performed at the highest standard of fairness, integrity, and competitive spirit. It's a thrill for me to participate in honoring Sam Guarnaccia and giving way to my classmate at Middlebury, Sam Guarnaccia Jr. Thank you.
Congratulations, Sam. So we'll do a photo if you can hold that and stand in the middle. All right. Carl will stand on that side. I'll on this side. We're looking right up there if you can.
Okay. Wow. What an honor. I first, after thanking Aaron for his wonderful, and everyone who's participated in the organizing of this wonderful event, I want to particularly thank the people who came up to me after being introduced at the football game and said, "Boy, you look good for someone from the class of 1930. That was really special. So, and I would like to make up the story that somebody has yielded me a couple of extra minutes, because it is really hard in 5 minutes to do what I would like to do here tonight. I'd like to also acknowledge that I'm here with my spouse, my sister, so 2 of Sam Sr.'s children are here, 3 of his three of his grandchildren and 2 of his great-grandchildren are here tonight. So I'm really happy to be able to share this time with them. My father, our father, came to the United States. That is, the glimmer of him came in 1904. He was one of 10 children in a Sicilian immigrant family. He and his 2 brothers on either side were born here. The rest were born in Sicily. And he got a lot of his strength training for football and other sports as a young man, carrying huge containers of meat for a meat packing factory in Worcester, Massachusetts. And so, in those days, of course, athletes were either natural athletes or not. And so, playing, both offense and defense, and as Carl said, that, playing both sides. So, boy, his sisters. And again, in those days, education was a huge value in European immigrants. And all of the boys went to college. There were 7 of them. And the girls made it possible for Sam to come here to Middlebury College. And the next big sort of threshold was in, Carl mentioned a couple of the things, but in 1940, he was here in the Italian summer school. My mother was also here in the Italian summer school. They fell in love. He asked her to marry him at the top of Chipman Hill, and which also my daughter Raina, her husband, asked her to marry him at the top of Chipman Hill more recently. And so that's where we came from. That's how it started, this family. Juan Centeno was a great mentor of my father in the early 1940s. Juan died, and my father became the head of the Spanish and Italian department for some time. You already know he coached football. So the next sort of major threshold to share with you about my father is that as the dean of the Spanish summer school, you would need to know that the Spanish Civil War in 1936 exiled a lot of great writers, poets, and thinkers from Spain. They all ended up in New York City, and, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump up here to Middlebury. So the Middlebury Spanish Summer School was really it had a golden age during the 50s and early 60s because of that. The greatest intellectuals in the Spanish culture were here in the summer. And it still continues to be an absolutely amazing culture. He was really the centrifugal force, and I wish I had time to tell you what it was like as a child to constantly be having people stopping into the house, which is the oldest house in Weybridge, right across the covered bridge down there that's red, and that became sort of the epicenter for the Spanish summer school parties, and I made the sangria and so forth. So then in 1963, the next threshold to share with you, Sergeant Shriver, some of you may remember Sergeant Shriver, because of Bill and Lois Craig were here at Middlebury College. Some of you may remember them. Bill introduced my father to Sergeant Shriver, brought him down to Washington, D.C. Sergeant Shriver hired him to direct the Peace Corps in Peru for 2 years in 1963. And so I would like to just share the story that his son Greg, who was at the memorial service in 2001 at Mead Chapel, wrote me and said to me, I forgot to deliver the punchline from the Shriver story. He said, which was that Sarge Shriver said to my father after he met your father, that's Sam Guarnaccia, he said. What a guy. Could you find me 6 more like him? And my father's answer was, there is only one. And well, I could go on. There was another. There are so many stories of that kind. I thought now I would simply share some things that I wrote for the memorial service for our father in September, on September 30th of 2001, presided over by President McCardle at the time. There was something about him, an indefinable, immeasurable quality the Spanish gypsies called duende, without which the sounds, colors, and gestures of life are pale. His senses were strong, vital, and deep. He was supremely real and without guile, much more interested in the person next to him or in his work or in a walk down the road or in you or in me than in himself. He was the real thing, and as a great writer once said, besides being complicated, reality is usually odd. It is not neat, not obvious, not what you expect. Reality, in fact, is usually something you could not have guessed. He was full of complementary qualities, but sometimes conflicting opposites. Very strong, yet extremely tender. Demanding but tolerant, at times uncertain but full of conviction, flexible, teachable, unstoppable. A powerful body with the soul of a poet. He was unconscious of his great gifts and therefore uninfluenced by them. But he always recognized yours or mine. If he were here listening now, he wouldn't know who I was talking about. With an almost supernatural ability to read a person's character, he many times helped open doors and change lives, and when he looked at you, you knew that he knew. He loved poetry and music, and so from the great Spanish poet Federico Garcia Lorca, I will share this ballad, a fragment of words from a ballad for children. My heart of silk is filled with lights, with lost bells, with lilies, and with bees. I will go very far, farther than those hills, farther than the seas, close to the stars, to ask the source of life to give back the soul I had of old when I was a child. So if greatness is having the courage to change your mind, change your thinking, to grow more and more open into life in all its fullness, pain, humor, ordinariness, and magnificence is fully flowing through you to others, then my father was a great man. Thank you.